We're taking a break from Donald Trump today because I need the break. Also because there are very important things happening in our own country back home that we need to focus on. There's a plan to change the number of seats in Lok Sabha from the current 543 to 850 and to implement the 33% women's reservation bill. Now the government, the central government and the BJP argue that this is about giving women the empowerment and the position in our democracy that they deserve. The opposition that runs the southern states is actually saying that this is an underhanded way of moving power from the south to the north. So allowing the Hindi-speaking states to actually choose whoever forms the central government. So is it about women's empowerment or is it about a deeper political reset? That's what we're going to look at with all of the information that we have in this video. Before we get to what is happening, please like and share this video if you find it useful. Subscribe to our channel, and if you are so inclined, please sign up for our membership where we put out every day an audio bulletin which is curated, fact-checked from across the world, and it also basically is presented in the least triggering way, the calmest way possible. It's become really popular with our members so far, so give it a try, give it a listen, and decide if there's something you would like to sign up for as well. So let's take a look at what is actually happening. So the central government is preparing to introduce a constitutional amendment, which means that they will change the constitution in a special parliamentary session. So there's no session of parliament right now. They have called a special session of parliament during state elections. Now the proposal basically says it will increase Lok Sabha seats from the current 543 up to 850, 850 being the maximum. It will implement the 33% reservation for women by 2029. Now, this means that 273 of those 850 seats will be reserved for women. The draft bill that has been circulated among Lok Sabha members says basically that the House of the People, which is Lok Sabha, shall consist of not more than 815 members chosen from direct elections and another 35 members from union territories. Now, as per a report, the figure of 850 is the upper ceiling, with the final number being decided by the Delimitation Commission. So the government basically says what it's doing is fast-tracking women's reservation, because the earlier bill that was passed said that it will happen only in 2034. The government has decided, no, we want to have it happen right now, which is great. Now, the Prime Minister has said that this whole exercise is being done for the passage of swift amendments, because any further delay, according to him, will be unfortunate and a gross injustice to the women of India. He also said that India's democracy will become stronger and more vibrant if in 2029 elections, women's reservation was already in place. Great, that sounds great. So what's the problem? Why is there a problem? But the problem is that southern states are all saying that this is very underhanded. And I'm going to take you through that. But first we have to understand what delimitation is. Now, based on the laws that was passed for women's reservation, it basically said that a census exercise has to happen, then a delimitation exercise has to happen, and then women's reservation bill will be brought. So the government wants to bring women's reservation right now. Let me first take you through what is delimitation. So to understand what is delimitation, very simply, it is the redrawing of our constituencies for elections. How do we decide what area becomes a constituency? So we remember, normally when you go to vote, you have that area that says this is your constituency, these are your candidates. So is that based on geography or is it based on population? So the last time India checked and redrew its delimitation was 1991 census. Back then, I want to give you an example. 80% of India lived in villages. Today, 1/3 of India lives in its urban centers, which means that the number of people in the villages has actually come down since 1971, obviously, and the number of people in the urban areas has actually gone up. You'll find a lot of times, and I used to have an editor who would constantly complain saying we do not have enough representation in the urban areas, and that's why nobody cares about us. So what he was saying is basically each MP from an urban area represents far too many people, and MPs from rural areas represent fewer people. So the larger urban areas should be sending more MPs to parliament, thereby people will actually care about what you think. Now that's one argument, but effectively what we're saying is that millions of Indians have moved from rural to urban areas, from poorer states to richer ones looking for work, from northern states into the cities of the south actually looking for work, which means that cities are underrepresented, that migration is actually invisible in our election process. It hasn't been taken into account. And the economic map of India right now does not match the political map of India. And that is where delimitation comes in. So our constitution actually has that clause that allows for regular revision of those constituencies to decide how many people will send how many MPs into parliament. So we're not just talking about population. We are asking basically of how the country used to be and how it is now, and is our parliament actually representative of who we are. So in simple terms, more population will equal to more MPs, less population will equal to fewer MPs. Now, on paper that seems fair, but this is where the southern states are actually upset. Now, the Indian constitution, what does it say about delimitation? There are two articles in our constitution that actually refer to it. So Article 82 says after each national census, Parliament must pass the Delimitation Act to redefine the boundaries and the number of Lok Sabha constituencies. Article 170 basically says the same thing for state assemblies and based on that population data. So what the government is expected to introduce right now in Parliament is this. The government is saying that in that Article 82, which it says basically you have to do a census first and then do a delimitation, they're saying we want to break that link. We don't want to have to wait for the next census before doing a delimitation. We want to do a delimitation on the previous census on 2011. So again, what is the problem with that? The government is likely to introduce two bills. One is to de-link, like I just explained, and the second one is to de-link it for the 3 union territories as well. Now let's come to the core conflict. The core conflict is states with higher population growth are mostly in the north of India, and they will gain more seats. States with lower population growth, so from 1971 to where you are today, if your population replacement rate has actually come down, you will lose relative power, and that is where the flashpoint begins. So to understand that concern, we put it down very simply. Today, southern states control about 24% of the Lok Sabha seats. If this delimitation goes through based on population, based on current estimates, that 24% will come down to 20% after delimitation. So every state may overall get more seats, but the share of the power will actually come down, and that is the real issue. Let's take a look at what these states have been saying. So Chief Minister M.K. Stalin of Tamil Nadu, in a video statement, actually put out a fairly stern message to the union government saying that pushing this constitutional amendment is actually wrong. He said, at this time there is an election on in Kerala and West Bengal, in Tamil Nadu, so everyone's distracted, everyone is campaigning. To call a special session while the election is on is actually, he said, effectively, an attempt to bulldoze the amendment without transparency. He accused the central government of acting unilaterally, of ignoring repeated appeals from southern states. Stalin reminded the centre that southern states, including Tamil Nadu, had diligently followed the union government's calls for population control, and now you are going to punish us for that discipline, he said. He also argued that basically this redrawing will move the balance of power away from southern states into the northern states. Telangana Chief Minister Revanth Reddy, who's with the Congress party, basically raised serious concerns as well and said this will affect the future of our democracy. He strongly objected to the proposal of increasing based on population. He said the real contentious issue is increasing seats on a pro rata basis. The potential impact will create an imbalance for southern states. He asked a very interesting question. Quite honestly, this is my question as well. He has demanded to understand why the Women's Reservation Bill cannot be implemented immediately on the current 543 states. Why is there a need to do delimitation and also do Women's Reservation Bill at the same time? He said political, and I'm quoting here, political empowerment of women is a moral imperative. Let's do it right now. Don't do delimitation, just bring in the women's reservation. Now, Mamata Banerjee has also criticized, so most of them have criticized. If you look at the southern states, you'll see that all of the south is currently governed by non-BJP governments, except in Telangana, in Andhra Pradesh, there is Chandrababu Naidu, who is an ally of the BJP. but he's an iffy ally. But there is no BJP government anywhere in South India right now as we go into these elections. Mamata Banerjee also brought it up, and she had the same concerns. Nirmala Sitharaman has today responded to Mamata Banerjee, and she said this, and I'm quoting. It is very in Nirmala Sitharaman's style. She has said, is she suggesting that women should wait longer? She would not cooperate. She's a woman herself. Let us say that openly. I challenge her. Is she trying to stop women's reservation from coming, putting fear in the minds of people of Bengal? There will be a delimitation committee for every state, and it will talk to all the parties. Now, to be fair, the government has not said that the delimitation will happen based on population. But to also be fair, on the other side, the government has not specified how the delimitation process will happen. So you've not offered clarity, and a lot of this confusion is happening in that grey area where the clarity has been withheld. Yeah. So Jairam Ramesh of the Congress party, who's the General Secretary, has put a post on Twitter where he said that this is deliberate deceit with the nation over the question of delimitation. Let's take a look at the numbers though. Like P. Chidambaram has basically said that the representation from the southern states will reduce to 20% and called it mischievous, diabolical in a move to radically alter the federal balance. But there was one person who put out something really interesting. This is Yogendra Yadav. Yogendra Yadav, watches elections very closely. He has assumed that the calculations of that 850 or 815 that will go up to 850, including 35 union territories, are distributed based on the population of the 2011 census. And this is the gain and the loss. So I'll put that up on your screen right now. You'll see all of the states in yellow are the states that will lose. The biggest loss is Tamil Nadu. Then Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Telangana, West Bengal, Karnataka, Punjab. Out of this entire list, Odisha is the only state that has a BJP government really right now. The rest of them are all non-BJP governments, which means that this is where the opposition is strong. Chhattisgarh makes no change. The green list: Assam, Gujarat, Haryana, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. The biggest gainer is Uttar Pradesh with 13 extra seats, and then Bihar and Rajasthan. So if you look at these numbers, when we look at it at a national stage and you're looking at winning the central, the union elections, these numbers will really come in handy. And this is what is making the southern, the opposition and the southern states so uncomfortable. So Yogendra Yadav has basically put out this calculation of who will win and who will lose. And that is where a lot of people are getting, are sort of being made uncomfortable. Now, what has the government said? Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju has said basically this is an attempt to mislead southern states that they will lose out. They will not lose out. He says, and I quote, if you go through the entire provisions of the bill, every state, every region, every community is taken care of. There is nothing to worry about, he says. Now, in the past, some people have tried to mislead the southern states that it would lose out due to their successful family planning. In fact, these southern states are fortunate that despite controlling population and having fewer people, they will still gain, he said. End quote. Now, to be fair to all sides, it is not clear how these decisions will be made. So while Kiran Rijiju is saying that this is basically misleading and building in fear, they have not clarified how those 850 seats will actually be distributed and how the southern states will not lose strength, how the strength will not go to the northern states. And in the absence of that clarity, we have all the confusion that we have today. Now, one of the key arguments coming from the southern states is this, that they have followed the path that India encouraged. They invested in education. So if you look at the human resource numbers from the southern states, higher education levels, lower crime levels, improving of healthcare, which means that, and there are markers, right? What is the life expectancy? How many women die in childbirth? How many hospitals are available? How have those hospitals been actively staffed? Promoting smaller families. They have lower fertility rates. They have better health outcomes. They have higher per capita income. They pay more taxes. So all of these states together, in simply, they have used the long road of education, of empowerment, of access to reduce the population numbers, and they are now showing success. In simple terms, they have stabilized their population because their development has improved. So if population representation is primarily tied reversely to progress, then what happens then to these goals? So the biggest concern here is not delimitation, it's not the numbers, it's the incentive. It's the message that is being sent. If political power is linked to population, then states that controlled their population will now be incentivized to do the opposite. So are we rewarding an increase in population? Like MK Stalin has not openly said that, okay, we're now going to tell people to have more babies, but he's effectively said that, hey, listen, we did everything you told us to do on the national stage, and now we are being punished. So this could weaken the push for population control in India. And this I find interesting because we know that within the BJP and also by extension in the RSS, a population control bill is something that they are looking at very strongly. They believe it's a problem they want to solve. Now, in the same way, based on development numbers, on GDP, on education, on healthcare, on access, the northern states have not done well. I mean, we were in school when they told us these were called Bimaru states, right? The gap is still quite wide. And that gap needs to be closed. It's not going to be closed like this by punishing the states that have done well. So it's not about representation at this point. It's the kind of behavior that the Indian democracy chooses to reward. It's the kind of route that the Indian democracy chooses to reward. And like I said, and I've said it repeatedly in this video, if the government issues clarity on the fact that this is how the decisions will be made, this is how the delimitation exercise will actually happen, and it actually, if it's saying that people are needlessly getting worried, if you're able to clarify that, then people will not get needlessly worried, and that will be a good thing. Of course, the other option is to just bring in women's reservation without delimitation. Do it on the 543 seats we currently have. We would welcome it. I personally myself have been someone who's cheered for the women's reservation bill. If you've watched Parliament for the last couple of decades, you know that every party has supported it at one point or the other, and they've been trying to push it through. It was actually the late Sushma Swaraj and Sonia Gandhi's pet project. They worked across party lines to make it happen. And it's so close to happening right now. Just let it happen. Why crowd it with all of these complicated ideas that will put a spanner in the works again? So this is where it is. Leave me a comment in the comment section on what you believe is actually happening, and if you believe that women's reservation should just be brought in as is.